Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is where we take, well, sometimes complex source material, but today it's more about deceptively simple language, language used in really complex ways, and we turn it into high-value knowledge nuggets for you. We know you're always looking for those linguistic shortcuts, right? Those precise phrases that can lift your communication, make it not just understandable, but structurally precise, confident, instantly.
Yeah, and that structural precision, that's really the heart of our deep dive today. We've been looking at sources focused on four, very common English phrases. They seem basic. You don't need a huge vocabulary for them, but actually mastering how you apply them. That's fundamental. It's the bedrock for clear interactions, transactional, conditional, professional stuff.
Okay.
So our mission really is to go way beyond just the dictionary definition. We want to explore let's say, the situational flexibility, the conversational gravity these phrases have in the real world, how they actually work to, lock down expectations, manage those maybe situations, and get everyone on the same page efficiently.
Right, and that's exactly why this deep dive feels so essential. Our sources are zeroed in on making your English better by mastering the application, the utility, and the grammar of these specific four phrases. So if you need to navigate, say, a tricky financial negotiation, or explain why a project timeline is shifting, or even just set clear boundaries in a professional email, this session should give you the tools.
It really is the difference between just speaking accurately, which is fine, and speaking effectively. Big difference. And we're going to start with a phrase that quite literally makes sure you're not leaving money on the table or, finding out about some hidden catch later on.
Ah, the classic hidden catch.
Exactly. It's the art of asking if you're actually getting the whole package.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Starting with, as you said, the ultimate transactional query. It's something included. This phrase, it's like your financial shield, isn't it? Or your go-to tool for logistical checklists. Doesn't matter if you're dealing with money, booking travel, checking a software package, confirming deliverables. This phrase just cuts through the noise. It forces clarity about what is part of the deal and what isn't.
And the first thing that jumps out grammatically is its reliance on the passive voice. Is something included? That choice is very deliberate. It's functional. By putting the focus squarely on the something, the item, the service, whatever, and using that passive structure, well, the question gets depersonalized. The focus is entirely on the item's status. Is it in or out? It's not really about the person you're asking.
I see what you mean. That structure avoids making it sound like you're questioning the person directly, right? Like if I ask, did you include the taxes? That could sound a bit demanding, maybe even accusatory.
Exactly. It puts the other person on the spot unnecessarily.
But if I ask, are the taxes included? It just sounds standard, like a procedural check, much less confrontational.
Precisely. You could use the active voice, like, does the subscription include technical support? That's grammatically okay, but honestly, it can sound a bit clunky sometimes, less natural in this context. The passive structure is technical support included. It just flows better. It's more standard for these kinds of transactions. And crucially, it shifts the perceived burden onto the policy or the list or the contract, not the individual. It's like performing a quick linguistic audit, in or out.
Let's dig into some of those higher stakes situations. We mentioned travel and dining, which are common, but think about contract negotiations or maybe software licensing, places where ambiguity can be really costly.
Oh, absolutely. In contracts, especially service contracts or IP licenses, this phrase is a lifeline, total lifesaver. Imagine a company buying a complex software license. They need to know, is the onboarding training package included with the initial fee? Or maybe, are future software updates included in the annual maintenance plan?
Right, because if you don't ask that up front.
Exactly. You could face huge unbudgeted costs down the line, thousands, maybe more. So the phrase manages those financial expectations right from the start, locks them down.
And it's not just about the money, is it? It's logistics too. Risk management. Like if I'm arranging shipping for something fragile or valuable, I might ask, is the standard insurance valuation included in this shipping quote? That tells me immediately if I need to buy extra insurance or if the basic cover is baked in.
Perfect example. Or think about checklists in complex fields like engineering or project management. You get this huge submission of documents, maybe blueprints, reports. Ensuring everything's there is vital. So asking, is the compliance documentation included with the final schematic drafts? It just confirms completeness. It turns the question into a straightforward binary yes-no quality check.
So the takeaway here for you, the listener, is that getting the hang of this passive structure is X included. It's not just about asking a question. It shows you understand how transactional language works. Prioritizing policies, deliverables, the what over the who, it just wipes out ambiguity where ambiguity can really hurt you. It's a tool for, like you said, structural precision.
It really is. And the flip side, the mistake we often hear, is trying to force the active voice where it doesn't quite fit, or even worse, sometimes omitting the verb entirely, sort of like Telegram speak, taxes included. For clear professional communication, the clarity you get from that passive voice is X included. It's just non-negotiable.
Okay, so if is something included is all about locking down the fixed state of things, like what's on a list. Let's shift to the phrase we use when, well, nothing is fixed. When the answer is almost always it depends. We're moving into variability now, structural flexibility, with the phrase, it depends on something.
Ah, yes. This one is it's a cornerstone of analytical thinking and conversation, isn't it? It's how savvy communicators avoid making those naive black and white commitments. It signals that you understand complexity, nuance. Functionally, it acts like a linguistic bridge linking a potential outcome or an answer directly to whatever is determining it, the variable, the condition. You use it to immediately signal, hold on, the answer isn't simple, it's nuanced, and here's the reason why.
And we absolutely have to pause here, like our source analysis really emphasized, to hammer home the grammar. Because this is a classic sticking point for learners, isn't it? That little preposition.
Yeah, absolutely critical. The preposition is mandatory, and it has to be on.
Only on.
Only on in this context. Depends is structurally welded to on here. If you hear someone say, well, it depends on the weather, or it depends about the final cost, that error, it just immediately flags a misunderstanding of a really core English structure. It jumps out.
Okay, but why is depends of such a big deal? Is it just a minor grammatical slip-up, or is there more to it?
It's more than minor. It's structurally fundamental. See, the verb depend, when we mean conditionality, is intransitive. It doesn't take a direct object by itself. It needs that preposition on to link it to the condition. On something creates the necessary prepositional phrase. It connects the outcome to the factor influencing it. When you stick in of or about, you're basically trying to connect things with a word that makes no grammatical or semantic sense in that spot. It's like trying to plug a USB cable into an Ethernet port. It just doesn't fit. It's a grammatical non sequitur. And native speakers pick up on that instantly as, well, non-fluent.
Wow, okay. That's a really clear explanation of the impact of that error. It's not just technically wrong, it actually undermines your conversational authority. Let's look at some situations where getting this phrase right is absolutely essential. Project management comes to mind again. Certainty is often expected, but rarely possible.
Exactly. Picture a complex project. A key stakeholder asks, maybe a bit impatiently, can we definitely meet the launch date next quarter? Now, the naive answer might be a hesitant, I hope so, or we'll try.
Yeah.
But the professional, the high-value answer uses this structure. Well, it depends on the timely delivery of the specialized components we're waiting for. And it also depends on getting that final regulatory sign-off. If we get both by week 4, yes, we should be on track.
I see.
You've immediately laid out the conditions, you've managed expectations, and you've shown you understand the project's external dependencies.
Yeah, that totally shifts the focus. It's not just about whether the team is working hard enough. It becomes about assessing the external factors that are actually controlling the outcome. It forces everyone to think critically about the real variables.
And this is incredibly useful in financial planning, too, or investment strategy discussions. Someone asks, will this particular stock make a profit this year? The only truly honest answer is usually conditional. Well, it really depends on market volatility over the next 6 months, and maybe it depends on the stability of the Eurozone or interest rate decisions. You're not just giving a guess, you're providing a framework for analyzing the possibilities.
And crucially, using it depends on is so much more sophisticated than just dodging the question. If I just say maybe, or we'll have to wait and see, it can sound vague, maybe even evasive, unprofessional, even if the outcome is genuinely uncertain.
Precisely. It depends on X is the detailed, analytical way to express that uncertainty or conditionality. It replaces that unhelpful vagueness with actual structure, clarity about why it's uncertain, even in everyday social decisions, right? Should we go see that new action movie? Ooh, answering, depends on the reviews, I guess, and it depends on whether we can get tickets for Friday night. You're using the phrase to structure your thinking process out loud. It makes the conversation more analytical, less just based on whims or guesses.
Okay, so mastering, it depends on something. And critically, always using on equips you with a phrase that shows intellectual honesty. It shows you understand conditionality. And it protects you from making that really jarring grammatical error. That's high-value linguistic protection right there. All right, let's shift gears again. We've covered fixed lists is included, and conditional outcomes depends on. Now let's move to something much more formal, more structure-dependent, talking about status, specifically professional absence. We're diving into the phrase on leave.
Yes, on leave. This is critical vocabulary in any kind of formal or structured setting. Think corporate environments, government, universities, the military. It communicates a very specific kind of absence. It's not the same as just being out of office or off sick for a day. The word leave, used here as a noun, strongly implies an absence that is sanctioned, pre-approved, formally authorized by the organization.
Okay, let's justify that formality, though. Why can't I just say my colleague is sick or maybe on vacation? Is using the formal on leave really necessary outside of like an official HR communication?
I'd argue it absolutely is, even in more general professional contexts, and here's why. On leave provides crucial context that simpler terms often lack. If you just say, a manager is sick, okay, that implies a temporary, maybe unexpected illness, could be back tomorrow. But if you say they are on sick leave, that signals something different. It implies the absence is officially recorded, it's authorized under company policy. And often there are specific procedures or durations associated with it. Maybe temporary cover has been arranged. That level of detail is essential for anyone who needs to interact with that person or plan around their absence, their team, other departments, maybe even clients.
And again, that little preposition on is doing heavy lifting here. It's not optional, right? It signals they are under a specific status.
Exactly. You are on a particular status. Think about being on duty or on assignment or on call. It's the same pattern. That mandatory preposition on links the individual to the official nature and duration of that authorized break. If you tried to say, she is in leave, it would sound, well, completely wrong, confusing. In suggests being inside something, not having a status. Using on leave correctly instantly communicates professionalism. It shows respect for the formal systems of the organization.
Let's explore the variations then, because just saying on leave can sometimes be a bit too general, can't it?
Yeah.
We often need to be more specific about why someone isn't there.
That's right. The basic structure on leave is very often modified to provide necessary clarity. So you'll frequently hear phrases like on maternity leave, or on paternity leave, or on annual leave, which is often the more formal way to say on vacation in many organizations, also on sick leave, as we mentioned, and in academic circles or for long-term development, on sabbatical leave. Adding that extra word specifies the nature of the authorized absence, which, again, is crucial for internal planning and understanding.
And probably the most serious, the most high-stakes use of this phrase pops up in legal or public service situations. I'm thinking of administrative leave.
Yes, that carries the highest level of formality and significance. When you hear that, say, the chief financial officer was placed on administrative leave during the internal audit. That lands with real weight. It immediately signals that the absence isn't voluntary vacation time. It's mandatory. It's directly tied to an official process, an audit, an investigation, something serious. It conveys a level of gravity and a specific legal or procedural status that no other phrase really captures. It helps manage external communications and control the narrative around that person's temporary status.
I remember hearing a non-native speaker in a company meeting once trying to explain why a senior manager was away for a very long time. They said something like, he is on vacation of 1 year, and you could just see the confusion on people's faces.
Oh, that's a perfect example of where the structure and vocabulary choice really matter. Vacation just sounds too informal, too short-term for a year-long absence. It doesn't fit. But using leave, perhaps sabbatical leave, or maybe long-term disability leave, depending on the reason paired with on, covers that authorized extended professional absence correctly. Getting the noun right, leave, and the preposition right on shows you understand and respect the formal procedures. If you need to talk about professional absence with any kind of authority or clarity, you really must use on leave.
That makes the practical utility crystal clear. Mastering on leave lets you communicate formal status precisely, and it helps you avoid that kind of casualness that can really undermine professional or official communication. Okay, our final phrase for this deep dive. We're shifting focus again, moving away from status and back towards active communication. Specifically, how we align knowledge and context within a group, especially when things are moving fast. This one's a cornerstone phrase in modern work life, maybe social life too. Bring someone up to date.
Yes, bring someone up to date. It's incredibly high frequency and for very good reason. It's generally the most standard, the most efficient, and frankly, the most polite way to address a gap in shared knowledge. You use it to make sure everyone involved, everyone in the meeting, on the email thread, whatever is working from the same current information, the latest baseline. Using it signals efficiency, collaboration, and a respect for shared context.
Now, it depends on it was all about the rigidity of the preposition on. This phrase seems to be all about the rigidity of its separability, right? We're dealing with a phrasal verb here, a transitive one. And getting that structure wrong is where fluency can just completely fall apart for learners.
You've absolutely hit the nail on the head. That's the crucial point. Bring someone up to date is a transitive phrasal verb. The action is to supply the latest information. And the direct object, the someone who receives the information, must go in the middle. It has to split the verb bring from the particle phrase up to date.
Okay, let's talk about the failure modes then. What happens if I get it wrong? Say I'm briefing my colleague, Sarah. If I say, okay, I need to bring up to date Sarah, how bad does that sound?
It sounds instantly unnatural, non-native, like you're maybe translating word for word from another language that structures things differently. It's understandable, perhaps, but jarring. But it gets even worse when the object is a pronoun.
Ah, right, the pronoun trap.
Exactly. Using the non-separated form with a name is awkward. Using it with a pronoun is, well, pretty catastrophic for fluency. You absolutely must say, I need to bring her up to date, or bring him up to date, bring them up to date. If you say, I need to bring up to date her, it doesn't just sound non-native, it sounds almost robotic. Clunky doesn't even begin to cover it. That separation verb, then object, then particle phrase, is mandatory for natural rhythm and grammatical correctness with this specific phrasal verb.
So getting that rule down, bring plus the person plus up to date, is just a non-negotiable requirement if you want to sound fluent using this very common phrase. Let's look at where this structure is indispensable in professional life. Handing over work after someone's been away seems like the prime example.
Oh, absolutely. Integrating someone back into the workflow smoothly relies heavily on this mechanism. If a team member returns after being on leave, or maybe they were just focused on a different project for a while, the first step is closing that knowledge gap. Okay, welcome back. Since you were tied up with the product launch, I need to bring you up to date on the budget adjustments we finalized last week. See how it sets a clear, efficient agenda? It signals crucial information transfer is about to happen.
Yeah, it's proactive. And it's also vital in managing meetings, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially big ones, or ones with external people who might have missed earlier discussions or background context.
Definitely. Think about kicking off a complex negotiation. You might start by saying, okay, before we dive into the specific clauses, let me just take 5 minutes to bring everyone up to date on the current legal parameters we're working within. It's a proactive step. It stops people from wasting time debating things based on outdated assumptions. It ensures the meeting stays focused, productive. It shows real competence in managing information flow.
And we do use it socially too, right?
Yeah.
Maybe a bit less formally, but the function is similar. It's like the conversational version of a quick summary email to a friend.
Absolutely. In a social context, it often serves to validate the relationship. Acknowledging time has passed and information needs refreshing. Wow, I haven't spoken to my old college roommate in months. I really need to call her and bring her up to date on everything that's happened, the new job, the kids. Here, it's a polite signal that you recognize there's a gap in your shared recent history and you want to close it. It's the linguistic tool for restoring that shared context.
What's the subtle difference, maybe psychologically, between using bring someone up to date and just saying, like, I need to tell them what happened?
That's a great question. Tell them what happened is very general. It could mean anything. It doesn't imply selection or recency. But bring someone up to date is much more specific. It explicitly frames the information transfer as moving the person from an outdated state of knowledge to the current state. It implies a curated summary, the necessary, latest information required for current understanding or participation. And that framing makes it feel very polite, very respectful. It acknowledges the listener wasn't privy to the latest info, maybe through no fault of their own, and signals that the information coming is specifically chosen to bridge that gap efficiently.
This has been genuinely illuminating, a really phenomenal deep dive. We started with what looked like 4 pretty simple everyday phrases, but digging into them reveals there are actually 4 incredibly high-value, structurally precise tools for managing complex situations.
Yeah, if we try to synthesize it all, we've basically analyzed 4 key pillars of essential English structural precision. We started with that transactional query, is something included? how it uses the passive voice to give you financial and logistical protection. Then we move to the conditional phrase, it depends on something, highlighting that absolute reliance on the preposition on to manage expectations and express variability analytically. After that, the formal status marker, on leave. Again, using on, but this time to communicate authorized professional absence correctly. And finally, the communication standard brings someone up to date, which absolutely demands that separation verb, object, particle for fluent context alignment.
So the core takeaway for you listening is this. High-value English communication often isn't about learning obscure vocabulary. It's much more about mastering these common functional structures. These 4 phrases, when you use them correctly, they eliminate the ambiguity, the awkwardness, the structural errors that can sometimes signal a breakdown in fluency. They help you sound not just technically correct, but genuinely effective and authoritative across all sorts of professional and social situations.
Absolutely. By really understanding the strict necessity of on in 2 of these phrases,
Yeah.
and the absolute requirement for separating the phrasal verb in the 4th one, you gain tools that let you handle logistics, conditionality, formal HR stuff, and complex information sharing with a kind of native-like ease and confidence.
Which brings us perfectly to our final provocative thought for you to mull over. If these 4 phrases help us manage expectation, conditionality, status, and information flow, and they rely so heavily on simple little words like on and the structure around them, consider this. Which single, simple preposition, maybe it's in or at or for, do you find yourself relying on most often to communicate complex relationships in English? Think about why that specific preposition feels so powerful for you. How does it help you describe location or time or purpose? How does it govern the meaning of entire sentences in your own communication?
Yeah, go explore that grammatical necessity a bit further for yourself. See what you discover about the power of those small words. We'll catch you next time for the next deep dive into the sources.
Until then, stay informed.